I want to show you here what I'm doing. While we were in Fort Lauderdale, a neighbor gave us some plants from her yard. One was a Suriname cherry. It's really delicious. It's globular. It's globe in shape. That's what I get for trying to use fancier words. But it's ribbed. So, you know, it looks like a tiny pumpkin, like about this big, right? Like maybe an inch tall and a little wider than an inch. And they turn red, bright red, when they're ready to be eaten. And they got a large pit inside. They're really good. And when they can produce a lot of fruit. So I'm going to use a rooting compound. I just picked this up at a Lowe's. This one's is the brand of Garden Safe. It's called Take Root. It's a rooting hormone. I've used this type of stuff in the past. I've never used this specific brand, but the rooting compound will help help the plant establish roots when there are no roots. So this is my final objective here, is to take the branch from the tree, and you whittle off some bark, expose the soft underwood, and then you split the bottom into fours, give or take, right? So this is like 4. And then you dip that in the rooting compound. Well, you probably dip this in water and then in the rooting compound, and then you put it in your soil. And then, you care after it like you would any other plant. Now, you notice there's no leaves on here. There's a specific reason for that. This has no roots. And when your plant has no roots, it cannot very efficiently take in water. So the water that it does take in is just enough to get this thing to survive and to regenerate and start to become a plant again. If I were to leave the leaves on this, they would all die anyways, because it can't possibly draw enough water in to itself to nourish the leaves. So rather than to ask the plant to try and save those leaves when it's going to be a fruitless endeavor, you just clip them off, start with your stick, your twig, whatever you want to call it, and you'll have quicker success, or better success quicker. All right, so how do I get to this point? Well, I trimmed off of that twig some branches, right? And I'm actually going to try to propagate this one as well. So I'm going to clip off anything that I don't want, right? So it's all of these other twigs. And I'm going to stop right there, just like that. So this is a pretty long twig. And then I'm just going to take the same tool. It's sharp enough. And I'm just going to whittle away at the bottom, right? And I'm going maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches or so. All right, but I'm just exposing the wood. I'm getting rid of the outer bark. All right, give that rooting compound something to interact with. Get it right into the plant, part of the plant that draws in water and works with the nutrients. Because the outer bark, right, that's a protective layer, I would assume. I'm no arborist, but these things seem to make sense to me. So now I'm just going to clip this to split it in half, and it should be pretty easy, right? So just split in half, real easy. And now I'm just going to come right down the middle of one side. Let's start on the top here. And just do that again. So that's 3 separations, and now I'll make my 4th. There, so now I've got my 4 independent separations. So I now have 2 Suriname cherry twigs that I can use. And I've already done this to this ornamental plant as well. She gave us this. I'm going to try and propagate this one as well, but it's just strictly ornamental. And it, I like it because it produces these really curly Q leaves. right? It's just so different. It's a nice dark, rich green. So it's just a plant for looks. So I'm going to continue with a few more of these branches from the Suriname cherry. I'm going to see how many I can get going. It's my understanding that it's a little difficult, say, to do it from something this size, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of those. But these thicker ones, I think I'll have a little more success. And this here was a branch that came off of this one. So there's no reason that, this shouldn't be able to do the same thing. Because that other branch that other twig that I showed you, like the first one, the fat one, that was just a branch off the main plant. So there's no reason that these little guys shouldn't work as well. I mean, at least, that's my guess. And it's just a little extra effort. And if I can get, 4 plants to do this versus just one, well, then that's 4 times as many berries than if I were to just do one. And, what's the harm if it doesn't work? So what, right? No big loss. Okay, so that's it on this. And we'll probably check in on these plants. I'm going to guess it's going to take 2 to 3 months before we see some actual results. It is the growing season, so maybe it's 4 weeks, but we'll see. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the miracleberry tree. So I've cut these off the tree already. I'll be cutting some more here in a second. But I just wanted to point out that when you cut the berry off, it's better to cut it off than it is to pull it off. And the reason for that is this little cap that's on there, it will preserve the fruit a little bit longer. If you pull the berry off the plant, it's likely that the cap stays with the plant and not with the berry. And the berry will spoil faster. These berries don't last long regardless. You're probably maybe looking at, without the cap on there, a day to 2 days, and then it starts to show its age. And then with the cap on, it might last 3, maybe 4 days. But, it helps. And then we can freeze these. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got plenty more to clip. So one there. There's 3 more here. And as I walk around, they're going to be a little hard to see, but they're in here. And this plant is loaded. I've never seen this much fruit on this tree before. So it really, really likes its new location. I think one of the problems we were having in Fort Lauderdale was aphids. And when I moved the tree up here to Sebring, it seemed as if the aphid problem disappeared. I can't imagine that was location space because I know there's aphids here, but something happened and the aphids on this tree are gone and it's just producing like mad, which is great. It's a lot of fun. I also want to point out this pepper plant here made its trip up some time ago, and we've got some peppers coming in, so this is doing all right. I think these are just sweet green peppers. I don't think Sylvie was planting anything spicy. Wait, here's the little card. Let's see what the card says. Oh yeah, Fresh Bites orange peppers. So I think these are sweet, not hot. So this one's coming around all right. And then in Fort Lauderdale, we had a blackberry bush, and it produced a couple berries one season, and then we moved, and curiously enough, the main plant died, but these little guys came up out of the ground on their own. And so while I was in Fort Lauderdale, I dug them out of the ground and I planted them here. What I did is I just basically stuck them in the dirt. They had a little bit of a root system, stuck them in the dirt, clipped all the leaves off the stem, and just let them start over from scratch. Right, so they're coming in. I would guess it's going to be, a couple of years before we see any fruit off these guys, but that's okay. Let's work our way over. This is some citrus. It's a pretty young plant still. This pepper tree here, this pepper plant, excuse me, just made its way up from Fort Lauderdale. I think it was fruiting. It was fruiting a good bit before the move up here, but it just got moved up here the last couple of days, and I think the drive in the back of the truck was pretty hard on it, but it'll probably come back. We've noticed that these pepper plants are pretty hardy. Right there's a little flower, so that's going to bloom, and that might turn into fruit. It is looking pretty beat up, but it's still producing large red bell peppers. This guy, jaboticaba, this was really struggling in Fort Lauderdale. I just think it was the soil. That's my best guess. It's not doing great here yet, but it's a really slow grower. So I just have to keep my eye on it. Maybe it's going to be some sort of fertilizer that might help bring it along. But hopefully it'll survive. I believe it will, but time will tell. Starfruit has come back nicely. This was in the same location as the previous plant, the jaboticaba. The leaves were very sickly looking. As soon as I got it out of the ground in Fort Lauderdale, it's just done much better. So hopefully this is an indication of what the jaboticaba is going to come around and do. This is the goji berry. It likes its new location as well. This was in the same ground as the goji plant that I just showed you. And as you can see, it's flowering, so we're probably going to get some, or not the goji, the starfruit. This is the goji berry. And this was next door to the starfruit. So this is flowering, so we'll probably get some fruit here in a little bit. And lastly, these are 2 avocados that we've planted. This one got beat up, something got to it. I don't know what it was, but it's coming back. It's survived just fine. There's some nice new growth there, and whatever got to it is gone. I've examined the leaves, and there's no more pests. So, and then this one wasn't too far away from it, and this one was untouched. So the little story on these 2 avocados is when Sylvia and I were coming up to Sebring and house shopping, we stayed at a Airbnb, and the host had in his backyard an avocado tree, and it was fruiting at the time. So I grabbed like 5 avocados, and we brought them back down to Fort Lauderdale with us. And when I had them, they were some of the best avocados I've ever had. They were a good size. They were a little larger than grapefruit, maybe like the size of 2 grapefruit, and they were just incredible. So we grew 2 plants from the pits, and the idea is I'm going to go back to the owner of the Airbnb and ask if I can get a cutting from his tree and graft it onto these 2 so that these guys will start bearing fruit sooner than later. I gotta wait probably, I'm gonna guess probably another year or 2 before these guys will be big enough for grafting. But hopefully it'll all work out. Oh, wait a second, what is that? What is that? That looks like the makings of a small, tiny little caterpillar. I will probably have to address that to make sure that this doesn't continue. All right, so I just want to give you a quick update on some of our edibles. I'll walk over here real quick, show you this. This guy has gotten substantially larger. Our pineapple made the trip up, and this one is doing good. I mean, look at the size of that. All right, so he's coming in real nice. I'd say we're maybe 6 more weeks away, because I think there's more growth in this guy yet, and then it'll start to turn golden, and I'll get that fresh pineapple smell to it, and that's when we'll have to pick it. Another one here, a little smaller than the previous one, and then there's a little guy down here. And we have I think like 6 more pineapple on the property from the previous owner. So it'll be pineapple season for us here pretty soon. All right, guys. So stay tuned with more plant updates in the coming weeks. And please remember to subscribe and like and share and all that good stuff. And we'll see you soon in a new episode. I have got to get back to trimming some berries off the tree. I knew I forgot something. This here is our little fig tree. If I remember correctly, it doesn't get much bigger than this. And I would say in the pot height is 2.5 feet at the most. And we've already picked, I don't know, 5 or 6 figs. And you see here, we've got 3 there. And we got another one coming up right there. Sorry for the focus. The camera's just really struggling on this sparse plant. It keeps finding the background. But at any rate, so the fig seems to be doing all right. This actually fruited nicely in Fort Lauderdale. I've had it for a couple of years and we finally got some fruit off of it. I think, you know, if it doesn't really recognize that it changed locations, and when I moved it up in the truck, I put it actually inside the truck, so it shouldn't have suffered from any like wind burn. So, you know, maybe this new location, it's gonna just take, and then next year we'll get, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times that many fruit. So time will tell.